Good morning.
Stand right here. Good morning.
I was doing a great job at the French pronunciation of your name, Nicole Soleil, correct?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
All right. What do you have to say?
I would like to start with the person that matters the most. Madison, she was a kind soul. She always had a smile on her face. She lit up the room when she walked in. Her laugh I could listen to all day. It was infectious. Her big sister skills were undeniable, and she took that role very seriously. Madison was smart, funny, loving, passionate, determined, and genuine. Her expectations were high, and at times we needed to let her fall. She needed to be reminded that not everything is perfect, even if she wanted it to be. Madison had an influence that most never achieved. Sometimes I would listen to a poem she wrote or watched her create art with no tracing, just pure talent. She would talk about college and what majors she would like to do and what would be most helpful to society. The passion that she had for everything and everyone was remarkable. I would catch myself watching her and thinking to myself, how lucky am I? I'm the one that gets to be her mom. What did I do to deserve a perfect person? She will be the best thing to ever happen to me at such a young age myself. I grew up because of her. We grew together. I learned from her. I mattered because of her. From the moment she was born, I promised myself that I would be there no matter what. Through the falls, heartbreak, letdowns, and struggles, I would be there. I would listen, learn, and love every moment. I wouldn't miss a thing. I would always protect her. On November 30th, 2021, exactly 17 years, 6 months, and 13 days made me break my first promise, and it will hurt for eternity. As her mom, I didn't protect her. First, I'd like to say thank you to the prosecution team. I say thank you to you all. Saying thank you really doesn't seem enough anymore. The countless hours you've worked, the time away from your family, and always taking our feelings into consideration. Karen and Mark, the work you've put into getting all the facts, speaking to us like we matter, and never wavering from your goal. It speaks volumes of the people you are, and I'm proud to call you a part of Madison's voice. Advocates and Jen, I'm not sure where to start. You've all seen me hit points in this tragedy that some days I wasn't sure who it was. One minute I'm laughing, next I'm crying, and sometimes I'm just silent. Either way, one thing stayed consistent. You always listened. Jen, you're not just a friend, you are family. My mind keeps going back to something during the trials. Something that is almost on repeat like a broken record. It's something as a mother I can't understand, and honestly I don't think any mother would understand. It was when Jennifer said it wouldn't do anything different. I'm putting a little emphasis on different, as I know life throws us things that are out of our control. But life takes turns and eventually puts them back in our control. Like giving you a hint when something needs to change. I want to compare a few things to see through my perspective. As I know things are different about the events and how we see them from the events on November 30th. While your son was hearing voices and asking for help, I was helping Madison pick out her senior classes. While you were purchasing a gun for your son and leaving it unlocked, I was helping her finish her college essays. While you dropped him off at school, upset that he was failing class, I texted Madison, drive safe, it's slick outside, have a good day. When you got a call to me at the school about your son and how it interfered with your day, I was rearranging my schedule so I could take Madison to get her oil changed for the first time. When you left without vacation and not taking him home. I was worried if she'd be okay driving in the first snowfall of the season and if she brought a coat. When you walked out of the office with a steady pace after hearing an active shooter, I ran from my home and started driving, trying not to break the law. When you were on the phone for 10 minutes with each other trying to figure out where the gun was, I was on the phone with her father and family trying to figure out where she was. When you left the Myers without knowing where your son was, I was desperately trying to get there as soon as possible. When you knew the gun was missing, you called the police, knowing it was your son who took it. I was having family call every hospital describing what she looked like. When you texted, "Ethan, don't do it," I was texting Madison, "I love you, please call Mom." When you found out about the lives your son took that day, I was still waiting for my daughter in a parking lot. When you questioned the reasoning on why you would do this, I was questioning if I was doing enough to find her. When you got a chance to speak with your son, seeing him alive and showing no support, I was watching families reunite with their children, waiting for my moment. When you asked him why, I was waiting for the answer onto why the last bus never came. When the police showed up at your house, you didn't understand why they were there. And I was asking police if they checked every possible location and if I could go search too. When you texted about not losing your job and you needed a lawyer, I was still calling my daughter because she came first in all parts of my life. When you could leave your house, I was still a prisoner in Myers. When you worried about what people thought of you and feeling threatened, I was learning your son threatened my daughter and fatally shot her in the head. When you drove to get your burner phones for communication, I was laying on the floor in Myers for hours crying because I forgot how to speak. When you checked into your first hotel, I was telling Madison's 11-year-old sister she was gone. When you cared more about yourself and alcohol and supplies, I was identifying my daughter in a medical office wishing I could take her place. While you were hiding, I was planning her funeral. And while you were running away from your son and your responsibilities, I was forced to do the worst possible thing a parent could do. I was forced to say goodbye to my Madison. We all see things different. Some prioritize and some don't. Accountability can only be given if you actually tried in the first place. As a parent, we all make mistakes. This is a normal way of life. Usually when mistakes happen, we learn from them. We try to fix it or talk it over. But continuing to make the same mistake over and over again is no longer a mistake, it's a choice. That becomes a decision. Those decisions that you made ultimately took my daughter's life. Because you decided that you didn't want to parent and listen to your son. You took the right away for me to be a mother. You do not get to decide that. You do not get those privileges. You are not above anyone. I love being a mom. It's the one thing that I'm truly great at. You cared more about your well-being than the one life that you should put above anyone, your child. And because of that, you both took 4 beautiful children away from this world. Being a parent is the part of life that you should hold to the highest level. It's an honor to be a mother or a father. Even when you think you have done your best, you continue to do more. Unfortunately, You never made it to level 1. You say you wouldn't do anything different. Well, that really says on what type of parents you are, because there's a lot of things I would do different. But the one thing I would have wanted to be different was to take that bullet that day so she could continue to live the life she deserved. You show no remorse, no respect or compassion for our family. The same traits that you've bestowed upon your son. The traits that have torn my family into pieces. The lack of compassion that you have shown is outright disgusting. Not only did your son kill my daughter, but you both did as well. The words involuntary should not be a part of your offense. Everything you did that day, months prior, and days after were voluntary acts of your son to commit a murder. Not just one, but multiple. Shaking your head during a verdict is the utmost disrespectful thing I have ever witnessed. At that moment, you felt your life is more valuable than my daughter's. I will say that will never be true. You decided that parenting wasn't a priority. Putting your child first should be the only priority. You didn't, and because of that, I've lost my daughter. I had to get answers after her death. Watching the video, hearing testimony on how your son executed my daughter, watching him put the gun to her head as she covered her head and pulled the trigger, seeing pictures of her laying in her own pool of blood, knowing her body sat there for hours, that rigor mortis had already started to set in, so that when I identified her, her body was in a state I couldn't imagine. Hearing her sister scream over and over again night after night, watching her family and her friends fall apart. You created all of this. You created your son's life, which then allowed this to be his path, which should be yours as well. You don't get to look away. You don't get to cry. I didn't get that choice. You failed as parents. The punishment that you face will never be enough. It will never bring her back. It will never be a loss that you have suffered, and it will never heal the pain. Because one day you're going to be able to see your son, visit, hear his voice, possibly laugh, maybe see him grow. I will never see that again. The so-called loss that you say you have suffered doesn't even compare to the loss of a child. Your Honor, I request that the maximum sentence be enforced, as it will never come close to the life sentence I was given. A life sentence that I didn't ask for, but a choice that was made for me. A life that I will suffer because of their negligence. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Good morning. Can you tell your name?
Yes, Jill Swatley.
All right, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Judge Cheryl Matthews, for your time on this case. I know it hasn't been easy on both. Thank you also to Karen McDonald and the entire prosecution team. We appreciate your efforts. Your Honor, my trauma and devastation is hard to put to words, but I have done so in my letter to you. I would also like to mention Justin's brothers, Nathan and Clay. They are now forced to live a life without their beloved middle brother, Justin. My son Justin was the least deserving of his fate. He was the best son that any mother could pray for. Justin was brave, spending his final moments protecting a fellow student. He was hardworking, a lettered athlete, a top honor student. He was kind and inclusive to all. He was full of love and joy. His future was so very bright and full of possibilities. His passing has touched so many family members, friends, students, and the community in general. The ripple effects of both James and Jennifer's failures to act have devastated us all. This tragedy was completely preventable. If only they had done something, Your Honor, anything, to shift the course of events on November 30th, then our four angels would be here today, and Justin would be getting ready to celebrate his 20th birthday on the 18th of this month. If only, Your Honor, they had taken their son to get counseling instead of buying him a gun. If only they had secured that gun. If only they had spoken up that day in the counseling office. If only they had checked his backpack. If only they had taken him home or taking him to counseling instead of abandoning him at that school, I wouldn't be standing here today. Your Honor, I don't know what's in their hearts. I'm not a mind reader. But I only know the facts of this case. And the facts of this case, both cases, have been deeply disturbing. What I would like to share with the shooter's parents is an example of what love looks like between a mother and her son. This is what Justin wrote to me on one of the last birthdays that we celebrated together. Dear Mom, words cannot describe how thankful I am for you. You have been nothing but an amazing mother for as long as I can remember. Thank you for being a role model. Thank you for showing me what it's like to never give up. You inspire me to do better each and every day. I love you so much. Love, Justin. It is devastating and heartbreaking that it doesn't appear that either of you cherished or even wanted your son. But I wholeheartedly wanted and cherished mine. You have failed your son and you have failed us all. This failure had deadly consequences that can never be undone, that can never be made right. I am asking, Your Honor, for the maximum sentence allowed. Thank you.
So what I will do is for the second time in 6 months, I find myself in my final courtroom a victim. This time I'm here to address the judge and their parents about the disturbing behavior that murdered my son. This is my opportunity to try to address this obstacle of events that take place back on November 30th, 2021 as an impact in my life. It's my belief that the exact statement should not describe how this particular event impacted me. Our feelings should also be impactful toward all who are here. And the negotiation, like both these words, impact you and the influence your decisions here today. As I go around all the lawyers, police officers, media folks, and other victims, I can't help but ask myself, looking back at outcomes, they say this whole scenario doesn't know what they say. This is not stop. Most people are never have committed with an exact statement their lives. And the fact that if they still you're here today are doing so for the second time in 6 months, it should be lying in itself. This is not normal. Living a life like this is not normal. So how does that affect one die? To be honest with you, it remains a rather difficult and uncomfortable question to answer. My exact statement, I've expressed in my day-to-day struggles from uncontrollable emotional outbreaks, sleepless nights, to not getting what feels like normal daily. wounds. Well, we're coming up on 10-year life, and I should assure you that the wounds are still as fresh as they were on that day. It's this hole that has left in my life still very obvious. I fight every day to not lose the word myself within that very hole. I fought 30 years of my life, but when I went for a family, raised children, tried to set myself up for my life, and help know your life. What the influence has happened. And that's inside my life, but hard work, and having our company. That's not really about how to say that. Living in every single aspect of my life, and I could hold a line, I'm describing anything else, just how it can be. But it's like wait here, you know, like how that can happen. Because there's something on that. Another word on this in my case, I feel like that comes up attention to the whole parent. It's all that's necessary to prove that, you know, how many that our son, but what they're doing is necessary to clearly needed. But what is very necessary to care about being that kind of life. It was very fast, and I just one, but through multiple surgeries, trying to hold up how crazy. I will always maintain the opinion that I have, that was in these cases, which are hard enough to convince the injury of their regardless of where our trials are. As I maintain the force that has some years in being a parent or a child, and because you see my penalties allow them to feel better to arrive at the beginning of the charges. I think stand with you to justify it. And it seems like my inner care. And this is the same position that's like mine. However, it's a little while worse for instance than the real dealing with the fact that I have the rights to speak the facts that are charged against them. And that being said, there were all of these trials. I did not have that character ever and press all that facts. This is important. Because there are values. Not just thousands and thousands of man hours. But gathering processing and evidence, but also being able to use that evidence to establish the whole hard truth of that way. They changed and Crumbley. They failed in their responsibilities as they became the shooter with their son. The cold truth that showed that they did nothing, which are obvious that they deteriorated my things, they might have their son. More very hard to do. That shows that they were fired for something. That's exactly what I want to do what they did and ultimately fix. One of the things that worked or something like that, something of that magnitude didn't even happen at all. Never can get beyond how that went wrong. Although there were some things that went wrong one day, there were several things. I they have been handled correctly, but it wouldn't be like right now. And Jane and Jennifer and Crumbley careful of the responsibility and handle those things. For certain trials, the whole also in where it's been and I can see the one trial that was convicted. The numerous acts that were the same whole trials show clearly that the parent had failed their son, and ultimately their hurt. With Jennifer, they better ways than most. But that she stated that knowing what she found out, she still wouldn't have changed anything. I'll just die, and she just said that. 4 precious lives were lost at the hands of her son. That's why he means that she helped provide. She saw the drawing murder drawn at the hands of her son. She sat and heard the press concert and did nothing. And she still said that she wouldn't have changed anything. I just don't understand how someone can use that purpose to make a statement like that. The blood of our children is on your hands to do. This is what we mean by that Jennifer shoots my mind. maximum amount of persons. The fact that should be all the other community with her speaks like worse overall mental understanding that I feel that the maximum amount of time available needs to be for her to be able to work and the latter part with waging there were a couple of things I found out in the particular one thing that the fact that the first place with me and he sat there and shook his head and felt all this agreement. As a sense that sure was rough. I was not positive shake his head such facility and action that only suggest the truth is not wrong. I'm constantly thinking that before I touch my eyes, I lost the hand and your son. My knees and knees are high. He saw my mind murder from the hand and the sun. He sat her by the counter and nothing. I just don't want to tell someone so arrogant about what was self-pity. How can you say something that you do not have? The blood church is not your hand. This is about being my wife. Should be seen the maximum amount of assistance. I think it should be all yours. Maybe. With this thinking my life works and go wrong and I feel my maximum time available to be able to focus on my life. Throughout the course of all this, I'm not talking right back in the beginning. I just can't get away. I just actually just there would be the obvious signs that would be the over the whole of the mass that's my parents and they fail. Across the board, they fail. They believe when I hire a child, selfishly don't for helping them. It's hard reason why I mentioned the event that they were able or allowed to have another reason why they both need my maximum amount of time available. Being able to focus on their actions from their parents. We all know that having children is a big responsibility. Although it's really rewarding. It starts out pretty scary. I mean, let's face it, they don't have to become instructions. There's no easy button. Unfortunately, the law process or my mind must be either. Oh yeah. And there are times when you can worry now. Yet they still have. It's still on my father, even though that's not very clear what it all entails. But how you meet us that responsibility and not act responsibility for that child. It doesn't add up. A child, even you lose a child, deserves the same amount of action compared to that child. A child deserves someone who is confident enough to be my example. Because let's face it, if you look at our choices in the world, you need them. And it's your responsibility to teach them how to live. It's your responsibility to set a good example. It's plain and simple. But it's like that, it's not happening. It's sincerely, you can figure out how to figure that out and better go on TV. You never work. That's not right, but you can get the other really work and everything. If there was no one, I think I'll tell them how to do it. Because each child is so precious and unique. I mean, there's no other like them in the entire world. And that's that. So cherish. You'll get my nonsense. And never go alone. Never go alone. Everything I talk to them also. You can't try. You can connect back with life. So good. What happens all? Go to the like their kids. And make sure they know you are there. And make sure that they are all right. That's so crucial for the whole our society. Thank you.
privately with her sister before they even learned how to write essays. November 30th, 2021. All parents did this in school. Yet the next time you see Hannah's resurrection of the body, you have about like their sauce. I met up with Hannah in school that day. We waited to go back to class, and I just looked back and smiled. I didn't say goodbye. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to remind her that I love her, that she's my everything. The person I want to walk through life side by side. I thought she should be given. Of course, I cleared her high school basketball that night, get ready for all her circumstances, how to be a varsity season for all she played, get her driver's license, clear out season, have her first date, graduation. She never got a chance to any of that. She didn't even get her 15, 16, 17, or 18th birthday. These are some high school experiences that she never got to have, but it is absolutely nothing compared to the rest of every chance she had for her future. That's what you return. Let's start again. 12:21 p.m. on November 30th, 2021. That was when I became aware of fragility of mortality. Hannah was healthy. Hannah was 14. Showered 4 times. 12 times in a little shot that day around her. She got her last breath and all the blood, and it was going to happen in 3 more months. 11 months, 7 minutes while these police passed by her, leaving as a security guard failed to return on her. Dying as a guest more than 10 minutes after she should have been detained to even give aid to her. Our Vietnamese grandma would all worry about anything bad happening to us if she would be dangerous here in Japan. She told me to say that I was one of the last saying, don't worry, I'm fast runner, I'll run them. It wasn't possible for her to run the spot by you and Jennifer Crumbley. The firefighter by nurse thought you James gave to your son. What you used to murder Anna, Justin, Tate, and Madison. The fact is, what you tried to make yourself believe, Jennifer, you did feel like a parent, both of you. To love, to be loved, that is the human experience. It was up to you to show your son that. Instead of giving quality time and passion, you give your son a gun. A gun you knew caused extraordinary damage. There's a reason you didn't use the true firearms or point-to-point ammunition you own. Your actions cannot even be confined in word failure. Your mistakes create a everlasting nightmare. So yes, we're still in this society because even after 2 years, we have yet to admit to your wrongdoings. And we know that we have not learned from our mistakes to repeat history. You call yourself a victim. The difference between you and Tate and Madison, you and my family, you all the students there that day, is that we have a handful cause of this. You caused the most horrible thing I could ever imagine. You guys made it so painful. That is not narrative, that is reality. For that, she was punishing you for the ability to stop time if there was no punishment or rehabilitation that would be enough. Because there is no way that the love that I have, and I now have to live without Hannah, my little sister, my best friend, my other half. To me, that makes some sense when you think 15 years is too short. Hannah didn't have 15 years to live. Jennifer just said even if you want anything you know now, you wouldn't do anything different. I cannot fathom that. I would do anything you hear footsteps coming up the stairs. You don't have to worry about it on video. She said that. To not have an easy dinner at the table, to have my clean my room, and ask what's close to order, to see my napping on the couch, to watch her show me and say the same thing at the same time. There are days when I wish I had run out of the building. If I knew I know now, I would do anything differently in a heartbeat. I want to teach you things differently. One day I would have chosen to care for your son, teaching you how to love and to be loved. That you would not choose to violate that special children's bodies. That you would not choose to omit important information to account for Sean Hopkins and Indian students in each teacher. It could help your conflict brains and change your brain cells to decide to access your backpack. That you would still choose to have accountability when the reason we had it for our lives. That you would choose to say, Hannah, Justin, Tate, and Madison. Like my mother said, day, so tomorrow doesn't get it. So tomorrow she wanted to live so badly, but tomorrow she should have. I can never do this just in talking about her. Just all I want to talk about. You have me like I'm still so hard work to capture her innocence. Your thoughtfulness, kindness, loyalty. She's always there for you. Help you without a thought. She's always sharing her mother's smile, food, clothes, her hours with joy. She's funny. Together, she brings people together. Whether it's continuously laughter or sarcastic, you be like that, I love her. She does small things, shoes, hair, haircut, jewelry. But even more importantly, she makes you feel seen. She's spirited, her energy is unmatched on her forward. She goes to her holidays, every spirit day, first Christmas lights, or matter. Not in relation to the light to so many others. She's the one now, like legally brought out a smile, I would example her as a looks up to her. Nothing that it goes up to her because she's lost her, but that's a whole lot of thinking. She is a perfect, she's honest, and to me that's as close as you can get. I can't be away with losing her to me. I'm just sure of every step I take. I think going forward on fire is something that might be able to navigate. I believe the word status and approach to you because it doesn't capture her or the way it was shattered. I didn't know. I've never felt like I've been my life and being here until Hannah's murder. I didn't know what it was like to stop up in the morning until she was here. I've never known pain that was forever until seeing on a casket. I didn't know it's possible to feel so isolated even when you're surrounded by people. I didn't know how it feels to not yourself at all. I have no idea why you got Hannah. She's my happy. She's my home. I look on Hannah and every night, every place I go, and it's exhausting mess of disappointment every time. But it's the world. It's all the people she would have met. I grieve for them too. To have that chance of not leaving my life taken away. For me, it's frightening in itself. She's more person than you two find traditionally every hope to be. But when it comes to represent society or 13 years, I believe we are more than Hannah. I believe that every moment will live like Hannah. I hope you laugh every day like Hannah. And I hope you love unconditionally like Hannah. That's it.
Mr. St. Julian.
Thank you. I find myself in a rather odd state of mind today. Rather emotionally blank right now. Part of that is having to do this again. Part of that is I'm mostly a private person, and the idea of having to pour my heart out again is irritating. And I can't match the eloquent words that have come before me in the previous impact statements. So I'll limit my words today. The defendants, through their choices, through their indifference and gross negligence, enabled their son to murder my daughter Hannah and 3 other children. They chose to stay quiet. They chose to ignore the warning signs. And now, as we've heard through all of the objections, they continue to choose to blame everyone but themselves. Every single objection, I think, that the council said this morning put the blame somewhere else, their son, not them. I stood before the court several months ago and spoke about the impact that Hannah's murder had on myself and my family. Nothing has changed since then. It's impossible for me to truly convey the complete impact of my daughter's loss. Hannah's murder has destroyed a large portion of my very soul. I've said these words before. It's still the truth. I remain a shell of the person that I used to be. I think of her and miss her constantly. Every day is a battle to attempt to move forward, struggle to get out of bed, to go through the motions of everyday life. Simple everyday sights and actions bring pain, as I think what it should have been like with Hannah there with us. I think of all the good times that we've shared together as a family, and more on all of the memories that will never be. I will never think back fondly on her high school and college graduations. I will never walk her down the aisle as she begins the journey of starting her own family. I am forever denied the chance to hold her or her future children in my arms. A few words describing Hannah can in no way fully capture her truly beautiful, caring soul, or impart her unlimited potential. Hannah was absolutely beautiful and thoughtful person. She was always the first person to notice when someone had a problem, and the first to go out of her way to offer help. She was incredibly curious and talented. She continually tried new things. She crafted homemade jewelry, tried cooking her own recipes, and played several sports. She was a record holder in track and a leader of her school volleyball and basketball teams. She also hoped to join her older sister on the lacrosse team in the spring. She had aspirations of a career dedicated to helping people. All of this is lost because of the defendant's actions and choices. My position regarding the defendant's sentencing and their future has evolved through their trials. At first, I was focused on the importance of getting a guilty verdict, to have the message conveyed to the public that this type of behavior and choices are not acceptable. I didn't have strong feelings about their sentencing. It was just something that would be determined by the system. My view, however, has changed as the defendant's level of defiance has grown. Instead of acknowledging any mistakes, they continue to show no remorse. They take no accountability. They and their lawyers continue to try to change the narrative and portray the defendants as victims of the prosecution team. They blame everyone but themselves and make threats of retribution. The facts have already been presented. The jury has found them guilty. Multiple juries have found them guilty. Hannah, Madison, Tate, and Justin are the ones who have lost everything, not the defendants. As such, I ask this court to sentence the defendants to the maximum allowable penalty of 10 to 15 years in prison. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. St. Julian. Thank you for being here. Mr. Muir.
Tate Muir's dad. First of all, Mark, Karen, the whole team, strong work. Everybody said you couldn't do it, and you did it. For our family, it's not time to celebrate. This tragedy has taken an incredible toll on our family. So our family's not going to give the Crumbley family a second of our time up here. It's time to turn our focus now. This is the low-hanging fruit. Now it's time to turn our focus to Oxford schools who played a role in this tragedy. You know, I hear this morning when we're listening to all the objections, and hear Sharon talking about protecting the criminals' civil rights, constitutional rights. Where's my rights being protected? I fight for everybody in this room. My rights aren't being protected. Criminals' rights are more important than our rights, my rights. We are ready for our government to perform an investigation on this tragedy. Many don't know that our government has not investigated this murder. A pre-shooting investigation, a day of the shooting investigation, and a deep dive investigation into the horrible response to this tragedy, the disrespect shown to us families, the simple things like trauma training for somebody like a Sheriff Bouchard, who we got to talk to on the day that we got to go identify Tate. And he referred to Tate as a girl because he was too busy that night working to cover it up, instead of learning about every kid, Tate, Hannah, Justin, and Madison. It's time for the whole truth to come out. It's time to learn from this, from the purchase of the gun to the response. That's when real change happens, is when we can look at something and we can evaluate it, apply lessons learned. That's when real change happens. Is Hannah St. Juliana's family ready for the truth? Justin Shelley's family ready to hear the truth? Nicole Baldwin's family ready to hear the truth? Tate Mears' family's ready to hear the truth. Quit denying us that. It's time to drive real change from this tragedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.